third player that's been part of this top end consensus mix. In fact, I would say that Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M was probably neck and neck with Hall for most of the year until the combine. He had an injury and wasn't able to test, and the numbers underwhelmed. He slid a little bit. But let's talk about him, because I think he was probably one of the most exciting prior to the new year. 6 foot tall, 217 pounds, 20 years old, which is something people love. He won't be 21 until August. So we know in Dynasty in particular how much we love young players, particularly at such a volatile position. Four-star recruit out of Klein Collins High School. Lots of big name attention, Alabama, Oklahoma, but he wanted to stay close to home, went to Texas A&M, which ironically was the same place that his father went to. His dad, Fred Spiller, played tight end for the Aggies. So have to imagine there was a little bit of a familial connection swaying him that way. But he contributed immediately as a true freshman, started 9 of 13 games, led the team in rushing. As a sophomore, I love this stat. I don't really go deep into college stats, to be honest, but he recorded 6 100-yard games over 8 starts and 10 contests played. 6 100-yard games. It blows my mind. Also earned all SEC first-team honors that year. And then last year, over 1,000 yards on 179 carries over 12 starts. And also, this is the big thing about Spiller, 25 grabs in his final season, and also recorded his first receiving touchdown in 2021.
Yep. He's a really interesting guy. And when I started doing a little bit of work for the 2022 draft back in last summer, just kind of getting familiar with the guys, not hardcore tape watching, but he was one who stood out. There was a couple of games in 2020. I want to say one was, I don't know if it was the Colorado game or something like that. I'm trying. No, that would have been this year. Colorado was this year. I think it was probably the LSU game that I watched of him in 2020, and I said, "Whoa, okay." And I may have even been watching somebody else and just said, "All right, this kid's legit." And he never quite put it together this year. I don't want to make it seem like he had a bad year, but there was some disappointing moments in games and things like that, and just kind of left me wanting a little bit more. He had the fumble against Mississippi State, and he was held in check against Alabama. Touchdown totals weren't anything special. It was just, I felt like he underwhelmed me a tiny bit, and then the combine workout happened, and it was like, do I kill him for this? Is it, and I really had to go back and watch the tape, and I regained some of my appreciation for him, but he's just outside my top 5 backs, and I have all those guys closely ranked, but I see a little bit more.
So you were lower on him, the consensus, though, because he's number 3 almost everywhere else.
Yeah, I don't feel that way, but I don't feel like he's that far off from it either. Creativity wise, I think he's got all the vision and the short area bursts you're looking for. He's tough. He's going to run through some contact. I think he's pretty good at making the first man miss. He's just got enough wiggle there, and he'll string enough 10, 12, 15-yard runs together to volume his way to 80, 90, 100 yards and things like that. He made a spectacular catch against Colorado that was, it showed real great body control and concentration. And it just, I think he's young. And I mean, you mentioned young as being a good thing. It is. I think he still needs a patient running back coach to kind of get the best out of him. And I would love to see what that product is, because it could be really, really good.
It's interesting you said that he's lacking that patience. I think you're right, and I hadn't put this together. I watched an interview with him, and when he was asked to describe his playing style, he just sort of shrugged and said, "I see a hole and I hit it."
Yeah.
And that's right. And you're like, oh, how sweet and earnest and young, frankly. But also, you're missing that extra level, that shade, that patience that we talked about with Hall, the focus, the ability to read the field, like that evolution of skill set. So I think what you're honing on is something he admitted, whether he realized it or not. I also appreciate, I thought he had really good jump cuts. There's nothing bad about his game, right?
Yep.
I thought he was kind of boring, to be honest. It's a little bit, it might be, I love your comp. I'm just going to say it. Damian Harris is a guy that I love because he's like a jack of all trades, but a master of none. But for fantasy, like productive, right? You know, you can
Yep.
get him in there. You know, he's going to get you something. I felt similarly. I did comp Spiller to Joe Mixon, but I think that
Mm,
that's a ceiling. I think that that's a bit of a reach if I'm being totally honest.
yeah. Maybe not the same kind of speed, but yeah, I think the same running style is there. He's got a pretty big frame. He can take some hits, and tough kid, right? He'll pop right back up. I think part of it too, and somebody had kind of pointed this out to me probably I was actually at the combine, and I was sort of bemoaning him a little bit because I came into the year kind of hyped and ready to go.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, this is my dude, Isaiah Spiller,
that was everybody.
RB1.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they said, one of the problems was, I mean, they had Kenyon Green, who's probably going to be a first round pick at guard, but the line lost a lot of talent from the year before. So again, another, like we said with Iowa State and Brees Hall, maybe not an ideal group up front. Plus, I really think, in using Harris as my comp, I thought I would love to see him go to a New England style power gap scheme, right? I mean, that's, I think, where he's best. They didn't do a
Hmm.
ton of it. They ran a lot of inside zone, a lot of outside zone, a lot of mid zone and stuff. And so it was like, I don't know that that's the best way to use him. He can do it, but some of that lack of patience you said, I think is also because of the scheme fit. I think he's just better at kind of going downhill and playing with power. I think
I
that's really where you're going to get the most out of him.
I think he needs more juice than that though, because he gets tied up on ankle tackles. Like he can break
Yeah.
all the arm tackles, but the ankle tackles, I don't know if it's because he's got kind of long legs, so he brings his knees up a little bit high or gets tangled, it looks like maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
and some of it too, like you watch him on some of those zone runs, and I don't know that he sort of presses the hole the right way, and he just like the timing and the feel of it fell off, and so
hmm.
yeah, I don't know if my theory is right or not. I mean, I hadn't really thought about the ankle tackle part. That's an interesting observation you made, but yeah, he frightens me a little bit. Like he's got a fear factor about him that
Okay.
makes me think that it's not a guaranteed success. But boy, if he gets in the right system, I think with the right coaching, he could be something.